Ciao friends! In a previous video we have seen how to create KPIs with Power BI Desktop. In this video we want to understand the differences between Excel and Power BI when you consume a KPI published on a Power BI report from different clients, because you can use Analyze in Excel connected to a dataset published on Power BI. So let's take a look at an example where I have a report here with status and trend, which are two KPIs assigned to the revenues measure. Remember, you create these KPIs using Tabular Editor. In Tabular Editor, you can edit the KPI properties, changing the graphic and the expression for trend and status. Remember, this is described in the previous article and video about this topic. So, what I want to focus this time is what changes when I use Analyze in Excel. I create a pivot table and I consume the same data that you see here. In this particular case, I obtain a very similar report. You see that the status and the trend have the same graphical representation. However, if I go back to Power BI and I change this visualization to this other page where I use a different graphic for status and trend, you should notice that status now has 5 different states. And you see that there is a pie chart in this case. If I go to Excel and I try to show the same KPI here, not only I don't get the right visualization in all the cells, but because you see that I have empty cells here, but I also have a different visualization for the status, and also the arrow, the trend is different. In order to compare the two graphics, I prepared here a side-by-side comparison where you see that in the first case we had exactly the same visualization, but now I'm using a status that has 5 states, the pie chart, and the pie chart itself, you see that in this case we have a quarter here, but in this case we have an empty state. For this state that is empty, we have a blank here, and the same happens also for the trend. You see that the trend that is negative here doesn't have any representation here. So why this is happening? Well, the idea is that there is a different representation between Power BI and Excel of the range of values when you have the graphic that has 5 states. We can see this in an example that I prepared here, where you see that in Power BI we have different graphics that have 5 states, but the state has a number that is an integer value between -2 and +2, whereas those visualizations with 3 states have -1, 0, and 1. Same as in Excel for the 3 states, even though you see that the graphic could be different. I will recap this in a moment. But when you look at the 5 states visualization, here Excel has a different representation between -1 and 1, and the decimal values are recognized as valid values. So what happens if we try to use the range of values we have in Excel to optimize our KPI? So I can show you here, this example has been optimized for Excel. You see that Excel now has the right visualization here. But at this point, you see that in Power BI, when the number is not an integer value, you see a decimal value and not a graphical representation. So, because of these differences, it's important to plan if you want to use one client or both clients and choose those graphics and those range of values that are compatible in both or that are optimized for a specific client, like we did in this case. In this example, I created a specific KPI for Excel and another one just for Power BI. Of course, you create multiple KPIs this way, but if you want to have the maximum range of graphics in both environments, this is what you have to do, because the visualization with different ranges doesn't provide you any other choice. So in the article, you will see a lot of details about the graphics that we suggest to use, and also the example of the calculation that you can implement. You can download the examples with all the possible combinations of KPIs that you can obtain. Enjoy DAX!